Welcome back to This Day Live, the Sunday talk show, here on the Arise News channel. With me is Chike Ogea, former Commissioner for Information, Delta State, and Managing Director at McFoley Hospitality Limited. Chike, thank you for keeping faith.
Thank you.
Well, we've had two guests. One major guest, Professor Usman Yusuf, and then Ebi Yomo, who is Arise sports anchor, analyzing the ongoing Women's World Cup in Australia and New Zealand as it enters the critical stage, round of 16, knockout stage, and Nigeria playing tomorrow. First, let's start with Professor Usman Yusuf's submissions on Niger.
Yeah. He said a lot, I listened to him very attentively, and it just tells you about how diverse Nigeria can be. Basically, what he was saying is that for them in the north, they have been at war for over 14 years, having issues with Boko Haram, banditry, and terrorism generally. That the people in the north are pauperized, they are weary of war, and they definitely will not support any war. He brought to our attention that there are at least 7 states that have contiguous borders with Niger. And he did say that the Nigerians and those northern Hausas, Kanuris, Fulanis in Nigeria are brothers and kindred. That there is no way on God's earth that any northerner, in fact, he said the 19 states, he's sure, of the 19 northern states will not support such an action. Indeed, he questioned why the new president, who he feels still has issues of legitimacy because he's still waiting on the courts and all of that. He doesn't have a cabinet in place. He doesn't have even the war council or advisory, structures in place, will take such a hasty decision. He thinks it is hasty and it is something that should not be encouraged at all. He does not understand why Nigeria should get into a proxy war with the superpowers. He drew the attention of what the Western powers, America, France, England, what they've been doing all this time, with a lot of issues to do with Africa. He points to us to Libya and says, see the mess they have left in Libya. They have also done the same in Afghanistan. They have done the same in Iraq and all of that. He does not understand why there is any reason why we should, come up and have this kind of situation at all. He says that, yes, indeed, the president has sent emissaries to Niger Republic, and those emissaries have been snubbed, even from the highest category of a former head of state of Nigeria, a revered Sultan of Sokoto, the spiritual leader of Muslims in Nigeria. But he says, why would that not be the case when you've already played your last card first? That you already threatened these people. It was an unprovoked threat. And of course, he understands why they will not talk to anybody. And that, in fact, what he's trying to say is that those diplomatic efforts should have started first before the threat of war and before issuing deadlines and all of that. Okay, the deadline is going to expire today. What next? Because obviously it seems like we have basically put our foot in it, and I don't know how this is going to be resolved. So basically it's a catch-26 situation, how did they say it? Where 22. Where, to go forward is a problem, to retreat is a problem. So I don't know. Yes.
Listen to you. We'll come back to the issue about sports.
Yes.
Now that Nigeria is going to a different kind of war tomorrow. But let's take this quick break, and then when we return, the program will continue. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back to This Is Live, the Sunday talk show here on the Arise News Channel, where Professor David Aworawo is here now, joining Chike Ugea. Chike Ugea, before we took that short break, you have been talking about Professor Usman Yusuf's submissions. It was very clear that Nigeria must not get involved in any war in Niger. But I was waiting for you to talk about sports, Super Falcons against Nigeria tomorrow. And then, of course, the World Cup, Women's World Cup generally. I don't know how women-friendly you are, whether you have been following the World Cup or not.
I saw the match today, actually.
Okay.
And that was the one between USA and Sweden. It was a brilliant game. I was talking to my daughter in the house, because she just came to see me. And I said to her, by the next World Cup, when we are watching this World Cup, we might not know the difference between the women's game and the men's game anymore. Because the tactics, the technique, everything is top-notch. And you can see how minute the detail is. I don't know whether you watched that game to the penalties. And even in the penalties, he took a penalty that the ball was just marginally across the line. Yes, after he had gotten to the death, sudden death, before that game was decided. So that tells you how competitive the game has become. You see, in the advanced countries, Japan, America, England, in Europe generally, the game has been professional for a while. They have women's league there. They actually pay them, good money. They train as professionals and all of that, which we don't do back here. That is why, for our girls to even be in that arena, to be in that conversation is a great thing. Even though I know we have a few of our girls out there, in different club sides. I think Azizat is in Barcelona and a few of them all over the place. But the truth is that that game tomorrow, of course, as patriots, we all want to see Nigeria do well and all of that. But it will be against all odds. That is the truth. Because I know the kind of conditioning, training, psychological, physical therapy that, these British girls have been going through, not for this tournament, but over the season. They actually have a structured season, So, in as much as we all hope against all hope, but even if our girls lose, I'll be too happy to congratulate them that you've done well and you have represented us at the summit of women's football. But like I said to you, Ruben, women's football is the future. Women's football is the future.
And we hope that the Nigerian authorities would, see to that and invest more.
We have to.
In developing sports generally.
We have to, and we have to get top administrators, just like AB said, that will be passionate about it, single-minded about it, and develop the sport for us.
Professor Aworawo.
Yeah, let me begin with
Women's World Cup.
Yes, I will even begin. I want to start with the coup in Niger, because that is very critical. And we hope that for once, the government will listen to us, the experts. Prof has spoken, and he has spoken along the same line as others who understand war, the dynamics of international organization and all that. Have spoken since the 26th, when the coup occurred, and the 28th, when ECOWAS met. And I cannot find one single individual, analyst, who has recommended that ECOWAS should go to war, in Niger over this matter. And that is because they are conscious of the implications. And also that is because the issues are so simple. We talk about crisis decision-making in foreign policy analysis. In this particular one, the right course of action is very clear. It's so simple to understand. And that is because when you put all the dynamics, all the cards on the table as to what course of action to take, when you tick, going to war, you won't find any box that you tick positive on, Niger should be attacked on account of this. First, you talk about capacity. When Nigeria went to intervene in Sierra Leone and Liberia, along with other West African countries, the body all came to Nigeria. Nigeria spent about the statistics we have, $12 billion on those wars at that time. Can Nigeria spend $1 billion on any of such at this time? So the capacity to win, which is the most important, the most critical thing in deciding to go to war, we can't guarantee. And the global system is not very complex. Now, in West Africa, we have countries, Burkina Faso, Guinea, Niger, Mali, that are already under military rule, who have, said they will support Niger should Niger be invaded. And we have Russia backing those countries. Can you imagine a scenario whereby ECOWAS invades, these countries fight back, Russia backs them, the West backs ECOWAS, and West Africa becomes a theater of war. Countries are already poor. We all know what the consequences of war are. So we just pray and hope that the ECOWAS leaders and President Tinubu will listen to us this time. War should be off the table. I agree with Prof. and Chike that a mistake has been made already. You do not go issuing ultimatum from the very beginning. Especially when you are issuing ultimatum, when the ultimatum comes to an end and what you seek does not take place, what do you do? And we have history along this line. In 1931, when Japan invaded Manchuria, the League intervened and attempted the military, coordinate the member countries to engage in military action. The countries didn't support. They were lukewarm. That was the first blow on the League of Nations. The League lost face, the League lost credibility, and from that, in fact, that was the beginning of the end of the League. From that point till World War II broke out in September 1939, and 1945, when the war came to an end, the League was just, like one scholar says, the League was just lying like a cadaver, waiting to be interred. So it was a mistake in the first place to issue that threat, but there's still a way to come back. Sometimes you seek the greater, the absolute good. That was what ECOWAS tried to seek, the absolute good. Let the coup plotters hand over back to the elected president, let him return. That's absolute good. When the absolute good is not realizable, you settle for the lesser evil. And what's the lesser evil? Negotiate for the man to be released and negotiate with them on a short timetable to hand over to civilians. It's as simple as that. A mistake has been made, it can be corrected. Going to war to now say, we want to correct our mistake and make good our threat would be a disaster of monumental proportions. And we hope the government will listen and not go that direction. Then for the Women World Cup, yes, like everybody has said, it's becoming more and more sophisticated, more and more intriguing. The standards, the technicality, everything about it, it's just top notch. Of course, we also saw how big teams tumbled. Italy tumbled, went home. Germany tumbled, went home. Brazil tumbled, went home. Whereas Morocco, that was beaten 6-0 by Germany in the opening match, qualified from that group. South Africa, that only had 1 point to the last match, qualified from that group. Of course, Nigeria too qualified from his group. It's so fascinating. It's been very entertaining. And of course, from the African point of view, 3 countries for the first time qualifying is, heartwarming. South Africa was beaten this morning. 2 just errors, like we have said, small mistakes like that. The second one especially was the keeper's error, and that was it. If it was still one goal down, they still had the opportunity to, fight back. With 2 goals down, it became more difficult. And of course, the one between the USA and Sweden, the USA was unlucky really because they played far better than Sweden in that match. But that's how it is. Sometimes all those small, tiny things that decide, And in the penalty, the US keeper actually punched the ball. Of course, the ball fell back. She tried to, scoop it back, but the thing had crossed the line and all. So, but for our guys, yes, I'm confident they will do well. It will not be, a one-sided match from what they have done so far. And they should draw inspiration that since South Africa is out, we should redeem Africa by trying to at least progress. Let not the 3 countries that are qualified now also have the history of all of them being knocked out in the second round. Yes. And they should also draw inspiration from the Afro Basket, which took place just yesterday, in which our girls, defeated Senegal and an African champion for the 4th time.
84-74.
Yes, for the 4th time. They defeated another set of lionesses So,
Yeah, that's true.
yes, I guess you work and see whether they can, they should just come to the game. And they've been calm and, being panicky has been a problem. But this team so far has not been panicky. So we just can only, wish them well, encourage them. Let us do us proud tomorrow morning when they take on England.
Okay, let's talk about ministerial nominations and this Senate screening that we have seen on television. President Bola Tinubu last Friday withdrew the nomination of Miriam Shetty as minister, replacing her with Mariga Mahmood Bunkure, also from Kano State. By this update, the president increased the number of his ministerial nominees to 48, with the inclusion of the name of his campaign spokesperson, Festus Keyamo. All of this came as the Senate screened 13 other nominees on Friday.
Senate returned to plenary on Friday to another letter from President Bola Tinubu, increasing the number of ministerial nominees from 47 to 48. In that letter is the name of the spokesman of Tinubu's presidential campaign, Festus Keyamo. Senior advocate of Nigeria, Keyamo was the immediate past Minister of State for Labor and Productivity. Tinubu, however, withdrew the nomination of Miriam Shetty from Kano State, replacing her with Dr. Maria Mahmood Bunkure.
Resolved to withdraw the nomination of Dr. Miriam Shetty. Furthermore, I am pleased to nominate Dr. Mariga Mahmood Bunkure and Mr. Festus Keyamo San for consideration and, if deemed fit, confirmed by the Senate as ministers.
Senate on the same day screened 13 more ministerial nominees, beginning with the immediate past governor of Osun State, who was asked to take a bow and go after he briefly introduced himself. Former governor of Yobe State, Ibrahim Gendam, who currently serves as senator representing Yobe East, was next on the lineup. He too was asked to take a bow and go. Earlier, the Senate leader Okoyemi Bamidele explained that the Senate merely exercises power and privileges each time it extended the privilege of bow and go to serving and former National Assembly members.
It is the considered opinion of this Senate, which is also consistent with global best parliamentary practices and procedure, that members of Parliament who had served in Parliament are asked to take a bow.
Gendam falls in this class, and the Senate offered him all the entitlements. Senate extended similar treatment to the ministerial nominee from Niger State, Aliu Sabi, who was in the 8th and 9th Assembly.
Standing before you here gives me so much joy, knowing fully well that the 10th Senate has already begun to perform that very great national duty that the Senate has always been known to perform.
The ministerial nominee from Bayelsa State, Heineken Lopobri, a two-term senator and former Minister of State for Agriculture, also enjoyed the privilege of bow and go.
I had the rare privilege of becoming Speaker of Bayelsa State House of Assembly. I also had the rare privilege of being here for 8 years. And thereafter, I also had the privilege of being screened by the Senate and confirmed to be a minister between 2015 and 2019.
The Senate spent a considerable period of time grilling the ministerial nominee from Lagos, Dr. Tunji Alausa. Worried about the rate Nigerian doctors are leaving the country for greener pastures, Alausa said the solution lies in massive infrastructure development in the health sector. Former Governor of Plateau State, Simon Lalong, his colleague from Zamfara State, Bello Mutawali, and Atiku Bagudu from Kebbi State took few questions and were also asked to take a bow and go. Senate wasted no time with former Senator Alkali Hamed Said asking him to take a bow and go. The same privilege was extended to former member of the House of Representatives, Dr. Yusuf Tanko Sunono, the first man ever to be nominated as minister from the Federal Capital Territory. Zephaniah Gisalo, himself a former member of the House of Representatives, appeared next. Zephaniah, who was chairman Abuja Municipal Council for 6 years, was accompanied into the chamber by the immediate past FCT Senator Philip Aduda. He too was asked to take a bow and go. Next was Shaibu Abubakar Audu, son of late governor of Kogi State, Prince Abubakar Audu, who spent a considerable period of time responding to questions on Nigeria's economy, especially what can be done to save the country's currency, the Naira, from constant free fall. Ministerial nominee from Kano, Ahmed Tijani Kwaso, was also screened. He's an engineer by profession and a grassroots politician, believed to have worked strongly for Tinubu's victory at the polls in Kano. Senate eventually adjourned plenary to Saturday for the screening of the remaining 7 ministerial nominees, including Festus Keyamo. Omo Bazwaye, Rise News.
Okay. Screening of ministerial nominees, a likely cabinet of 48. What does that say about the cost of governance, and the process in the Senate? Some people have said, look, it doesn't look rigorous enough. But let me start with you, Professor Aworawo.
Yeah, it's not rigorous enough. People who try to ask questions that would elicit serious debate and all that were simply told, we don't want a situation whereby you raise an issue, another person will raise a counter issue. So the structure is that everybody will speak along the same direction. Sometimes you even ask, what's the screening about, if people won't be able to ask rigorous questions. The Senate president was just defending, protecting, and all that, and that was it. And the issue of take a bow, it's true that you take a bow, but then that does not, the fact that one has been in any of the houses of parliament before does not mean that questions cannot now be asked at all, And you just spoke about the number. It's large, 48. At the time we are talking about tightening bets, creating the avenue for bureaucracy and so much money spent on overhead. There is a contradiction between the gospel of let us tighten our bed, let us be frugal, let us be parsimonious, and at the same time having this large number of ministers. We thought the thing would come down, and the thing has been expanded. That is another dimension to it. And the more critical one is even the fact that, unlike what we saw under former President Obasanjo, where so many technocrats came in, and their impact was, they were the ones who made all the impact. Look at Additional who came, during President Jonathan's time, Okonjo-Iweala, Soludo, and the rest who came under President Obasanjo. They were the ones who stood out, not the politicians. The issue of let's reward those who helped us in the election with ministerial appointments, I don't know how far that would take us. Those are the things I see wrong with it. There are good people among them, Wale Edun, and of course they are intelligent, cerebral people, but then the number of technocrats among them who we think will be able to make an impact, quantum leap, not just some small addition to what we have already, are not many. And Miriam Shetty, to my mind, they should have just left her. Because they say, the powers that be, the strongest people in Kano were not the ones that nominated her. And those ones are their candidate. Just allow her. When you do cabinet reshuffle at some point, see those who have performed, see those who, these people can't have their way all the time. All these big people in the party and all, who they say, it's not from their camp. And so the capacity should be the most important thing, and that has not quite been the case in this context. Well, we can only wish them well and hope they do well, prove us wrong, so that Nigeria can record the rapid development that we all pray for and expect.
Okay, Chike, what do you think?
Yeah, for me, let me piggyback off what Prof has just said. And this is why I feel a little sympathy for the president. It is obvious that he has to strike a balance between those 3 major tenets of competence, loyalty, and electoral value. And I think that is why the cabinet has become so unwieldy and so big. And if you ask me, unsustainable for a time like this. Something needs to be done, The truth is that, just like you said, Prof, as Senate, I belong to a WhatsApp group, and there was this great debate that these people all have gone through security clearing. So what was it that was done there that they are coming back to the Senate for again, and that the Senate itself is not even, they say they are screening them again. Because don't forget, the Senate president made it clear that what has just happened is screening, not clearing. They have not cleared anybody. They said they will go back into their coven and do that clearance and announce to us those that will get through. So I would say that there's still a little window there. I remember when I was at the law school, the doyen of the law school in Nigeria, a gentleman of blessed memory called Dr. Ibironke. I don't think he was a professor. He was he was the director of the law school while I was there. And he took us in professional ethics. And one of the things he taught us, I remembered, was that for you to be called to bar, you have to be a fit and proper person. And being a fit and proper person means you have to have at least a word. Your word must be your bond. You know. So I am suggesting to the Senate that there are about 3 or 4 people I know from the top of my head who have said, they are recorded on videos, they should ask for those videos, and said they don't want to be ministers again. They cannot be ministers again. They have been ministers when they were in their 40s. Some said they are not the only ones from their states. Some other ones said they are ready to go back to their law practice. After this, they are done, and all of that. All such people, please just don't clear them, because obviously they are people who are not reliable and who cannot be taken for their word. Because if there are people that we can see videos of them saying they don't want to be ministers, and are they being nominated against their will or what? I don't understand. I'm sure there are still so many other people of great electoral value who are competent and who are loyal to the president, who are still there, ready to serve and, dependable. So I think that should be taken into consideration when, the final clearance comes out. If you ask me, that would be my take on this.
Okay. Let's see what happens eventually. But of course, all the persons whose names are on that list, some of them have been dancing, some of them have been posting videos indicating their joy. But let's take another quick break here on This is Live, this Sunday talk show. When we return, the program will continue. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back to This Day Live, the Sunday talk show, here on our Rice News channel. Still with me, I have Professor David Aworawo and Chike Ogea. Now, let's take this next subject while we're waiting for our next guest. Former U.S. President Donald Trump has denounced the federal indictment against him during a speech at the South Carolina Republican dinner in Columbia. He said Joe Biden is the most incompetent and corrupt president in the history of the United States.
And the fake charges put forth by the Biden sham, we call it a sham indictment, and the man that's doing it, I really believe he's mentally ill. But these are outrageous, and it is an outrageous criminalization of political speech. They're trying to make it illegal to question the results of an election. But you don't have strong borders and you don't have good elections, you really don't have a country. So they rigged the presidential election of 2020, and we're not going to allow them to rig the presidential election of 2024 because our country's not going to survive. Joe Biden is the most incompetent and corrupt president in United States history. The Biden crime family was taking in money from China, Ukraine, Russia, and many, many other countries, and now whenever more Biden corruption is exposed, his henchmen charge me with crimes. No, it's just a hoax. These guys, what they're doing with this election interference, and the Senate has to step up and do something. The House is doing a lot of things. But the Senate, under perhaps the worst leader in the history of our country running the Senate, Mitch McConnell, has to step up and do something.
Okay, former President Donald Trump, they are lashing out at President Joe Biden. The issue is a 45-page report which indicted him on 4 counts: conspiracy to cause mayhem on account of the January 6, 2020, conspiracy to commit fraud, actual obstruction of the electoral process, and then trying to steal from the American people. These are the 4 counts. And, the court has ruled that he has a case to answer. And the trial has said, the next appearance in court has been postponed till later this month. And he says it's a case of persecution. On Truth Social, he has said, look, it's Biden that is behind everything. But he has the support of the Republican Party and his allies. He's a front runner, in the Republican race for presidency in 2024. And he's going to appear again in court on August 28, just 5 days after the first debate, Republican nomination debate in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Well, very interesting development. Third indictment in 4 months for a former president, the first former president in American history to be slapped with criminal charges. The prosecutor has now asked for the protection of the court on the grounds that President Trump has been threatening him and other prosecutors in his team. What do you think, Chike?
Trump, that's one, as the Americans would say, one hell of a guy. No, but the truth is that America is in a bit of a quandary because Trump, like you rightly said, is very popular among his Republican base. And as we speak now, he's the front runner for a rerun at that election so that he can come back. And that is something very scary, knowing the images we all still have in our heads about what we saw on Capitol Hill at the last elections. How that will play out, I don't know. But just like you rightly said, those 4 major areas that he's been indicted for now, this seems to be much more severe than everything else that's been happening to him. America is a country of very strong institutions. We thank God for that. And that's why strong men like Trump, no matter how strong they are, can be held at bay. Now, whether he goes around threatening people and all that, which is his style anyway, the truth is that there are witnesses right now in court who are waiting to give evidence, to say, yes, he asked me to do this, he asked me to do that. These are all misdemeanors and all kinds of crimes against the people, electoral malfeasance, and all of that. So I want to see how he will get out of this, because the truth is that this is the only way America can be helped. Because if Trump is not stopped, Biden is ailing, he's getting old, and I don't see any strong candidate in the Democratic Party that can bring the kind of fervor and passion that Trump seems to drive amongst his own supporters and his own base, which seems to be expanding all the time. And they don't care about the moral aspect to Trump. Trump is like a religion to those people. I mean, you saw what happened in Capitol Hill. So America is in that trouble, if you ask me. And the best thing that could happen is if this procedure that they are going through will be able to hold Trump and get him to account for all those actions of his that were not presidential. And I can assure you there were quite a lot of them. In fact, not only that they were not presidential, they were actions that bordered on high crimes and misdemeanors. That is the truth.
Okay, Professor Aworawo.
Yeah, I think the United States is unraveling. I say this because, just like you pointed out, this is the first time that a former president will be indicted the way Trump has. Trump has made a point, which will have made sense, but for the details. And what is the point? That somebody is trying to stop him from questioning the result of an election, and that will not be allowed. Yes, nobody should stop anybody from trying to question the result of an election. But the fact is that Trump did not just question the result of an election. He called the Secretary of State of Georgia. He said he should look for 11,000 votes for him. Just look for it. That is not questioning the result of an election. He played a part in what happened on the 6th of January. That is not the legitimate means of questioning the result of an election if one thinks the elections are not credible. So the point is, the defense is presenting is really not, it doesn't hold water. And I say America is unraveling because how can a man with this extensive character flaw have so many people supporting him? I mean, it beats my imagination. It is true, they say, when you are looking for a political leader, you are not looking for a pastor, or you are not looking for somebody who is, nobody is error-free and all that. Yes, you are not looking for somebody who is totally clean, but you also will not be looking for somebody who is totally unclean. I mean, that should be the standard, that should be the benchmark. You should be looking for somebody who is ethical. You are not looking for a pastor who is without a blemish. At the same time, too, you'll not be looking for somebody who has no regard for morality. Trump has extensive character flaw, and it's manifest in so many things he did. He's effective in some areas, but that character flaw is extensive. But for somebody like that to have such a large number of people supporting him, the United States is not what we think. In fact, Trump has revealed what the U.S. really is, just like Hurricane Katrina revealed what we thought was not in the U.S. And like Chike said, fortunately for them, they have strong institutions that if you are going to the extreme, no matter how powerful you are, those institutions will bring you to justice. And that is what is, taken. I see him being convicted one way or the other. And it should not be to stop him from becoming president again. It's because somebody has committed a crime. And what is the sanction for the crime? Let it, go as it is. Every other thing is neither here nor there. But I'm also surprised that he is not even able to sit down to reflect and see that he has character flaw, and that his character flaw is what is haunting. If he didn't do any of those things, he will easily come win the election and come back and have his second term. But because of all of those things, those baggages, Trump is now where he is. And let's see how the legal process plays out.
Well, let's take our next topic. Following President Bola Tinubu's promise to fix the country's refineries, a key demand of labor unions, among other commitments, the Nigeria Labour Congress and Trade Union Congress last week agreed to suspend their nationwide protests and return to the negotiating table. The protests had been planned against perceived inadequate measures being put forward by government to cushion the effects of removal of subsidy on petrol. The unions also cited intervention by the Senate, which pledged to, within 1 week, get more involved in efforts to resolve the dispute. The resolutions were contained in a statement jointly signed by President of Nigeria Labour Congress, Joe Ajero, and Festus Osifo, who is President of Petroleum and Natural Gas Senior Staff Association of Nigeria. Meanwhile, the NLC has warned that it will commence a total strike beginning from Monday, the 14th of August, 2023, if the federal government refuses to withdraw the court summons to Congress latest by Friday, 11th August 23. Well, the issue about that court summons is that there is a contempt charge that has been filed by the Federal Ministry of Justice. So NSC reported for going on strike. Because you recall that in June, the Industrial Court had ruled that the status quo should be maintained. And that going on strike or protest, whatever they called it, amounts to an act of contempt. And now organized labor is saying the next time, if they don't withdraw that contempt charge, by the deadline of August 11, that they will go back on strike on August 14. And that the National Industrial Court must never be used to stop labor from protesting, and that the Industrial Court has been used again and again to violate democracy. But the question I ask in that regard is the organized labor above the laws of the land? Because they had initially obeyed that same court order, only to later go on strike. Can they cherry pick where they stand in relation to the law? Chike, let me start with you.
No, nobody can cherry pick when it comes to the law, and we all know that. But as we know, law and equity always come hand in hand. Those who seek for justice, they say if you go to equity, you must come with clean hands. And I think that's basically what Labour is just trying to say to the government. If you want to dialogue with us, and yes, we stand on the side of the people, because the people are really hurting at this point in time. The average Nigerian has seen his whole standard of living almost rubbished, as it were. And like I said, everybody's hurting. You bring out those dual policies of Naira unification and fuel subsidy removal, all at the same time, without anything in place, to help the people. And, that is where, it's just like the situation in Niger Republic. The coupists there, they have the absolute support of the people. And remember, I said it last week when I was here, that they taught us that a coup, once it is successful, becomes lawful. You understand? So it's the same kind of situation we're looking at in Nigeria, where the labor people are fighting for the ordinary masses who are hurting and are totally behind labor in this. So the government has to be careful, and you cannot ask labor to withdraw and stop striking, and at the same time you're activating, an old case that you had put there and holding them in contempt. Of course, they will say to you, if you want to bring up this contempt charge, we'll go back on strike. So it's again another catch-22 situation we're looking at here. Like I said, they cannot cherry pick which court order to pick, and I will expect the court to make, a consequential order at that time if they do go on strike again. But I'm just trying to tell you that I can understand from where I'm sitting how they are reasoning. And that is why I think it is incumbent on the present administration to quickly, let's leave all this grandstanding and shadow boxing. That's not what we need now. What Nigeria needs now are concrete plans that would alleviate the living standard and the suffering of the Nigerian masses. And we don't have that yet. And it's 60 how many days after this government has taken off. And every passing day, I can assure them, they will lose more support from the people and labor will become more popular. That is the truth.
Okay, Professor Aworawo.
Yeah, there are three things I want to highlight in this matter. First is that courts in Nigeria need to be careful. A time will come, people will just refuse to obey courts when they become so senseless. Are the courts trying to say that people cannot go on strike to press home their point? It's a global thing. ILO convention provides for that. Anytime people want to go on strike to fight for their rights, government goes to court. The court never rules against the government. Are the courts trying to say that Nigerians now don't have a right to protest, to go on strike, to press home their point? So the courts need to be clear, just like I was saying the other time regarding Akpabio and the Lawan matter. That is so clear, so a senseless ruling. What people normally not say about Supreme Court, people are not saying about Supreme Court. The reverse Supreme Court before now. So courts need to be careful, that's one. The second has to do with the government and the mass of Nigerians. Where they've reached some gentleman agreement here and there, which is fine if government goes ahead to implement what it has done. The last time I spoke about this, I said the government simply has kicked the can down the road, and now we have the point of decision came, and Labour did what it did. Even if the president goes ahead and they implement all of these things, I will still not be fully happy. I would have been happier if the government on its own had understood the plight of Nigerians and acted. President Tinubu has been an activist. He has been in the trenches. Why does he now require that Labour will have to fight first? So even if the government does it now, my joy will still not be full. My joy would have been full if the government headed by an activist had seen the plight of Nigerians and acted. I was just reading today about a professor in Federal University Dusima who is doing barber, cutting hair. He said that is his side hustle. And I tell you, that is real. Because what people earn, people now call their clothes according to their cloth, not according to their size. And that cloth is not fitting. The cloth is not fitting those because the size is not for the cloth. That's why you see a professor cutting hair. A side hustle to meet up. I mean, what, just like Chike said, over 60 days, a government headed by somebody who has been in trenches, President Tinubu should please not disappoint us. We need him to act fast on the plight of the masses.
Okay, very briefly. Labour also said it's giving a terminal date of August 19, expecting President Tinubu to fulfill the commitments on the basis of which organized labor decided to call off its action. Yes. And what are those commitments? They promised that the refinery in Port Harcourt will be completed by December. Yes. Now, this is the refinery that was supposed to be completed December 2022. And then the date was shifted to first quarter of 2023. And now we're told December. To provide a framework for the CNG, the compressed natural gas that government says is going to provide, and also all other promises made by government, the framework that it is promising, and the tripartite committee that they are promised to put in place. Is there any hope that these commitments will be fulfilled, or that the Port Harcourt refinery will be ready by December 2023? However, Labour says if there is no concrete evidence that those commitments will be met, there will be another strike action beginning from August 19, what Comrade Ajero calls total strike. That's the phrase he used. You have any hope?
The truth is this. The only silver lining I see in that situation is the fact that a few states have already started. I mean, Lagos State, Ogun State, I think, they started putting some things in place, Edo as well, where bus fares are being given at half price and CNG and all of that. So, but as for the federal government, we are waiting. We are waiting.
Well, very quickly, let's just take one more subject as we begin to wrap up. The tragedy at the General Hospital Odon in Lagos Island last week. According to reports, this doctor took the elevator in the doctor's quarters, only for the elevator to drop from the 10th floor, and help did not come her way until 40 minutes later, before she was rushed to the emergency unit of the hospital. At the end, this young lady, who had just 2 weeks to complete her housemanship, died. Dr. Diaso of Vari. May her soul rest in peace, but most unfortunate. In the meantime, the Medical Guild, whose membership is made up of all Lagos State government employed medical practitioners, has called for the prosecution of the contractors involved in the installation of the elevator that caused the death of Dr. Vari Diaso. Let me start with you, Chike.
Yeah, a very unfortunate incident. I remember that building from when I was in secondary school, and I was in secondary school in the 70s. We used to have friends doing house job, and we used to go there. And I remember from that time, you can imagine, in the early 80s, when we got into university, that there's always been a situation with the elevator in that general hospital. Now, the truth is this. When you have such elevators, you have the people that installed it, right? And it has always been like that. Then you have like an independent body that comes to verify on the installation that will make sure, maybe then, early on in the 80s, lifts were not as sophisticated as they are now. Because now, for those kind of lifts or elevators, you have to program them. There is a body like a Veritas certificate body who comes and makes sure that everything is working according to how it is working. And they issue a certificate of fit for purpose before you can let people use that elevator. But typical of Nigeria, we've heard that for the past couple of years, that elevator has had an issue. Nobody, obviously maybe monies will have been approved for them to do this or do that. The monies might not have been diverted for other purposes. And this young lady who had the whole world at her feet, you can imagine how her parents, I'm a parent, you're a parent, you're a parent. I can imagine how her parents feel now. It's such a tragedy, and it's not the kind of thing that should be happening in Nigeria today. And I pray we don't see this kind of thing ever again.
Well,
Prof, I don't know.
Well, what more can one say? We have a culture that has to change fundamentally. This culture of manage. Let us manage. Sometimes I send somebody to go and make photocopy for me. Photocopies brings it back. There are lines. He say, let us just manage. The person did it for me free. I said, go back. I'll give you money. Go and do neat one for me. I don't want to manage. This manage thing. I mean, just like Chike said, the people have noticed that this elevator has had issues over a long time. But this culture of manage. So the issue of fixing, has never been taken seriously. And I do not know whether that building has a facility manager. Normally, when you have a structure like that, you have a facility management within that will look at what is usable, what's not usable, what should be repaired, and all that. I don't know how, if they have one, how functional it is. Because it's rare. A lift could, maybe with the power outage, a lift may stop at one particular day, but that a lift is falling from one, it is very, very rare. And it speaks to our, the way we view life, the way we view things. Jonathan, we're talking about this World Cup. That FIFA now said they will pay our guests directly. Because if they pay the money to NFF, the money may not get, for the first time. Which speaks, that's the point you are making about maybe the money has been approved, but the money has gone somewhere else. So much needs to change for us to get to the level that others have already attained and to, overcome this kind of tragedy. We sympathize with the family and we pray that, the right thing will be done so that we'll never, ever have this kind of experience again.
Well, thank you very much, Professor David Aworawo. Thank you, Chike Ogia. You've been watching This Day Live, the Sunday talk show, here on Arise News. I'm Ruben Abati from my entire team here in Lagos. It's bye for now, and thank you very much for watching.